Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host. And here I am in my living room. I have bad news for those of you who are waiting for Ryan Graves. Unfortunately, about an hour and a half or 2 hours ago, I got a notice from the publicist, and there's an emergency situation. He wasn't able to make it. I hope he's okay and everything is all right with him and his family. So at the last minute, I contacted my good friend, Chris Lito, and I asked if he could fill in. And he's been working hard all day, but he says, I'll tell you what, I got someone for you. And that person is Carl. He calls himself Carl Crusher, but ANDREASEN. And he's been at Skinwalker Ranch and a lot of things. And we're going to be talking a little bit about drones. And we'll definitely fill the hour-long show. And I apologize. And Ryan Graves wanted me to apologize to all of you there. Out there listening and watching. I had a really nice setup in my studio. I was pretty excited to have him here, and it's just one of those things. It didn't work, and so what do? You move on. And so I am. Let's see. I'll just show the whole setup I had here for him, but it didn't happen, and here we are, and we will make the best of it. And welcome to the show, Carl.
Choose to fill, trying to fill in for Ryan.
Oh yeah,
fine.
Yeah, had a little bit of a lag. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm big shoes to fill, trying to step in for Ryan, but happy to help. Yeah, Chris hit me up, and Chris a lot of favors, and so I thought I'd pop in for you for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And you are in Utah, and I always ask this question of people, and generally speaking, what made you have an interest in this topic to start with?
Well, from my childhood all the way up, I have been an experiencer of the phenomena. So even when I was a kid, I had different paranormal encounters. When I was about 10 years old, I was basically taken with a friend of mine and then put back during a sleepover by some kind of entities, and then went through my whole life, and then decided as an adult about 5.5 years ago that after my father passed away, I decided I wanted to get to the bottom of it. So really about 5 or 6 years ago, I decided I was going to devote my whole life to it. So I changed my entire career path, my whole life, and decided to devote myself and my career and all my interests and everything into getting to the bottom of this. And that includes understanding the ancient perspective of the indigenous people in throughout history and the stories that they told, and all the way up to where the government has gone and spent tens of millions of dollars to try and get the same answers. And then who were those people that worked for the government? Who's still alive? How can I meet up with them to get answers and do my part as a civilian researcher and filmmaker to help other people since then? So that's kind of what got me into it. I started as a filmmaker and then decided that I would just align all of my personal encounters and experiences with the phenomena into that as a filmmaker and make it my whole life. So I've been publishing videos about all of my experiences over on my YouTube channel, which is why I have the nickname Carl Crusher. No one can spell or remember how to say my last name, so I just have that nickname to make it easy for everybody. But yeah, I've been doing it full time for about 5.5 years now, but it's been a part of my life, my entire life.
Oh, excellent. I just forgot to announce this. The blog this week is called Another Problematic UFO Originating on Social Media. And basically it's about I guess it was on Reddit, the Manchester airport, on, the UFO that was like a blue orb type thing. This was all just kind of a hoax that started on social media. So check out that blog, and thank you all for tuning in, and all those of you in chat and all that. So, what are some of the things that you're investigating currently?
Well, I'm really interested in, like I said, those specific locations where I know that the government has been, and they've invested tremendous amount of resources in secret to try and get to the bottom of these same things. And closest to me in this area is Skinwalker Ranch. And I grew up my whole life and childhood kind of hearing campfire stories about skinwalkers and things just like you would hear about Bigfoot or aliens or UFOs. And it didn't really occur to me that it was a real place, and it is. It's a real government researched place that exists in the state of Utah that has been researched since the 90s. And it's not the only location. There is one in Nevada that we uncovered as well, and several others. And so kind of like how I got into it in this region and what I do with that is basically I go to the locations rather than just watch the TV show, go to the locations in person, work there during the off season and in random times, and then even stay overnight, go explore the adjacent canyons and region to look for correlative evidence to see if there is patterns that we can put together as to how this phenomena is coming and going. If UFOs are real, if paranormal activity are real, are they coming and going from specific spots? How are they doing that? How is it affecting people? And can we measure and track it and get the evidence? And so what got me into these specific locations was just knowing where the government has been and where they've put millions of dollars of resources and who the people were that were involved. And then when you go start sniffing up those breadcrumbs and you follow that trail, you end up realizing there was a lot that happened. It was a lot more than just, hanging out in the cabin and telling ghost stories. They were doing a lot of real research. There's locations where they were heavily digging underground, looking for buried objects. There's areas where they were doing experiments as big as what you'd see in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they're projecting lasers, light, and sound out, trying to make contact. So trying to look at what they were doing and then see, like, how can I now, with modern technology that I can get off of like Amazon, can I like carry equipment in my backpack and go to these locations as a filmmaker and experiencer and then get the evidence for myself, rather than waiting for someone from the Pentagon or the government to tell me. It was coming into my home, into my bedroom, even as a child. And so I thought as an adult, rather than just wait for it to happen to me again at some random time, that I would go looking and that I would seek for those answers for myself. And when I got into that, I realized that there is actually an active effort going on. I've made friends with people like Chris Lado and Chris Bartell, and ended up making friends with Brandon Fugal, the owner of Skinwalker Ranch. And now I work directly with Dr. Jim Segala, who's a physicist and an engineer. He has multiple PhDs. And he's one of the key players that is actively going back to delivering evidence and reports and data back to Washington. UFO activity and how it's directly with me. We are partners on building these sensor systems and trying to get to the bottom of it. But for me, it's about a matter of going to the real spots. There was some things that happened in the early days back when the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia experiment and a lot of those things were going on, where they had achieved certain levels of understanding when it came to radio frequencies and how it affects people. And that sort of created a window of research that the government has chased all over to specific locations. So even though it affects people at home, they consider there to be hot spots that are more potent with this activity. So it's really interesting for me to go to those spots and see what's really there, see if it's legit. Sometimes people are just hoaxing or faking. Other times they're not. And now I'm at the point where I work with all these physicists and other specialists, and we try to scout these locations out and see what's really there.
Always makes me wonder, Ed, is there ever a consensus when you speak to this physicist and other people of why they think that these places are hotspots? I mean, is it a mineral thing? Sometimes it seems like there's some type of issue with copper. Well, Brown Mountain has copper, and there's a lot of things going on there and things like that.
Yeah, we have we look at all of that. We look at the geological effects and everything. We even utilize ground penetrating radar and different stuff and look at the geological surveys to try and understand that. And what it boils down to is like a formula, or it's like a combination of a few different things. Like Skinwalker Ranch specifically, I've gone up into cave systems to try and look and see with the Skinwalker Ranch team in the off season if there is something to do with the aquifers and the way that the water flows under the geology that creates sort of like a battery that could act like a window or a thin spot in our reality for the phenomena to come and go, to come into our plane of existence and then back again. And so we go and look into all of that. We go down in the caves and we get the readings with sensitive equipment, Geiger counters, EMF readers, infrasound, and all that to see if there's actually something going on underground. But what it seems like is back in the day when they were really researching out radar technology and systems to track airplanes and incoming missiles for weapons defense, that when they turned those devices on back in the early days in World War II, especially when Howard Hughes came into Las Vegas area and they started developing radar systems and phased array systems, basically they realized that there were particular hotspots or locations that appeared to be like a portal, you would call it like a nickname, or a location where these UFOs or plasma phenomena seem to come out of the ground or out of a mountain, and the locals even witness them going into the ground. So typically we hear stories about UFOs, and in the common culture, the idea is that they're from outer space or like they're coming from somewhere in the universe, in the solar system. But a lot of these locations, the phenomena is coming and going out of the earth itself. So they're coming out of the lakes, they're coming out of mountains, like they're phasing out of the mountainside itself and then flying around. And sometimes they even appear to be an object that's hiding underground, almost in an archaeological type situation that you have to try and uncover, which was the situation in Nevada that we ran into. But yeah, at Skinwalker Ranch and these other locations, even in Norway, when I went to Project Hesteland, it seems like
is that where you met Chris there? Did you?
I went there with Chris. The first time that I met Lado was up by Skinwalker Ranch. When we were there, we were launching a weather balloon to search for data up in the sky above the ranch, and we met there, and then we met. That's when I met Dr. Jim Segala and started making friends with some of the scientists that were working on all this behind the scenes. But yeah, there's definitely hot spots that are more potent. And basically what it is the electromagnetic field of the earth. Typically, as you walk around day to day, you're existing in a longitudinal waveform of frequency. That's the electromagnetic field of the earth. And that has a baseline that we call the Schumann resonance or the Schumann resonance. And that's like a music that's constantly playing in our reality that we live in. And there are spots that are exotic or unique where that longitudinal waveform of reality also has a transverse wave coming in from the universe somehow. So from outer space, there is a signal coming in vertically into that location, like a canyon or a mountain peak, that's picking up and changing that electromagnetic field signal. And that almost scrambles our reality and twists it in a way that creates these openings or thin spots where someone potentially that is capable of doing remote viewing or telepathic communication or sensitivities or even scientific equipment can go to these locations and actually detect that there's other things there. Things that typically would fall in our perceptual blind spot, that they would just be invisible to us day to day. But you go to these spots and suddenly you're immersing your brain and the synapses of your brain into the array of the canyon, and you can perceive these other dimensions or witness UFOs and see other things when you go into those environments. And that's both a natural phenomena and a phenomena of human consciousness that happens when you go to some of these places.
Very interesting. If you happen to have any browsers open, you were lagging a few minutes, about 15 minutes. If you have any programs running or anything like that, if you can just cancel those out. But
I don't
just don't
seem to
do.
have anything. Let me see if I
Okay.
can.
All right. Well,
Let me try that. I had one other window open in the background. I'll close that and see if that helps.
Yep.
Hopefully that's better.
That should do it. Yeah. So when you're doing this, what type of equipment do you bring with you when you're, researching these type of things?
So at the basic level, I just take my camera, and then I always have night vision. So I take a Psionics Aurora Black night vision camera to be able to film its full color spectrum night vision. I take a thermal imager, and then you can just get on Amazon now and you can buy radiation detectors, Geiger counters, EMF sensors, different types of scopes and probes that you can put down into caves to look. And then I'm also partners with Dr. Jim Segala, and we build these, what we call the MUPOS system. And MUPOS stands for Modular Unidentified Phenomena Alert System. And that's like a whole cluster of sensors that can detect gamma waves, infrasound, literally everything, microwaves, EMF, all of that. And it's all in one unit. And he's even developed it down to where you can wear it as a watch and it can track the whole environment around you, plus what's happening to you physiologically. So right now I have a sensor even in my house, so that, let's say if I experience something paranormal or if I witness a UFO, and then I have that hitchhiker phenomena where something follows me home, we can capture that data. So that's one of the big pieces of equipment that we have, sort of takes all that stuff and combines it into one. And that's called the MUPOS system that we're working on and developing, that you can use to track the encounters with the phenomena. But then I also am friends with and partners with a group called Terra Exploration Group. And if we find something that appears to be underground or buried, then I call them and they show up, and they have advanced ground penetrating radar systems, drones that they can fly with magnetometers. And we can actually see if something's buried underground, what it's made of, if it's trying to communicate with us, and all that. So kind of what I do is I would go to a location that is reported to have paranormal activity or a lot of UFO sightings, and then I'll go and research there by myself for like a good 6 months to a year to see if there's anything really going on with my personal equipment. And then we scale it up and we escalate things if it appears to be legitimate. So like if we find a place in Nevada or somewhere that appears to have a UFO hiding underground that's transmitting signals and people are having weird experiences, I can go there and investigate it for several months just with my backpack of equipment and film and document all the videos about it. And then if there's really something going on, I can message back to Brandon Fugal and the other people at the Skinwalker Ranch team, or we can hook up one of the devices that Dr. Segala constructs, and we can capture the evidence of that. And then if we keep getting more proof, then we end up calling in the whole crew, and we have they'll even call in the History Channel and end up making a whole TV show about it if there's something interesting there that they want to really go after. And so sometimes we'll even go all the way to bringing giant drills, tractors, professional laser operators and sound equipment operators. And it can scale up to where we've done projects where we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and figure things out. So most of the time, 90% of the time, I'm just going around with my back hiking alone. And then when we start to really get on top of something, it escalates and can go all the way up to a full-blown project, which some of those get so big that I'll actually get kicked out of, and then they just take them over, which is how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, this is just speculating, but there's possibly, as far as we know, there could be billions of planets out there with intelligent life. We have no way to know one way or the other. But it makes me wonder, I wonder if these type of things happen on those planets that other intelligent life is on. If there's, sometimes it's just so baffling why this would happen here with us, whatever it is that's happening, when there could be that much life out there. It's just I'm just wondering this. Joni wants to know, what do these things want? That's always the question. That's one of the three questions.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. I think they're interested in us because, in a way, paradoxically, they are a version of us. It's hard to understand without getting into deep philosophical questions about linear time and who we are as humans, where we're going when we die, and what all of that is about. I personally believe that what the phenomena mostly wants and what they're interacting with us on has to do with that. I believe that our reality and the way that we perceive reality as humans is unique, meaning that we wake up every day and we perceive linear time one step at a time and one moment at a time, from minute to minute. Like the past is behind us and the future is coming forward, like we're on train tracks, or we're in the river swimming in the current like a fish, and we can't get out of space-time. And that's the path that we're on. But these entities are not necessarily swimming in the river of space-time and linear time like we are. They are more standing on the shores. So they can see us swimming in our linear timeline, but they're capable of going upstream or downstream, or even reaching into the river and plucking one of us out and putting us back, like a catch and release. So I think that they're intrinsically interested in us, not because we're like something to be harvested or anything, but because our potential is to go from becoming like a fish swimming in linear time. We are meant to transcend and evolve and become more like them. So to me, it's more like a parent's mother and father trying to help a toddler learn how to walk, and we're stumbling along, tripping and falling, learning how to walk, while the parents are sort of guiding it. And so here we are as a planet and a civilization and humanity, and we're developing and trying to go interstellar and go quantum and go and to transcend even spiritually on all these different levels, scientifically and even personally, and all that. And I think the phenomena is interested in that because they got where they are now through the same process that we've gone through, or that we're going through. And so to me, we're kind of like a nursery and we're toddlers stumbling around, and they're keeping us from nuking ourselves or ruining the playground. I think that they're kind of like white blood cells that function as an immune system in the universe to keep us on track. Yeah.
Right. I like that saying. It goes something like, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. It's just so tricky. And I just feel like we have absolutely no clue with what's really going on around us. That's how I feel a lot of the times. Here's another question here. Can you reflect on two operational theses? One, paranormal that looks like technology, versus two, technology produces paranormal side effects. Could be phasing in and out, could be tech causing hitchhikers. That's an interesting one.
That's a great question. Right alongside everything that I uncover that seems to be UFOs and paranormal, there's always a lot of evidence and conspiracy embedded into those locations as well, where we have to try and figure out if somebody was there trying to fake things too. We also uncovered like patents and technology that are basically capable of faking the phenomena. And so it is a real puzzle. The government absolutely has like what you would call Project Bluebeam technology, the stuff to where they can use phased array radar systems that are buried underground even, or even satellites or towers. And they can even transport it in a van, hide it in the back of a van, but they can project these radar frequencies into what they call cross-beam technology. Like they take two scalar waves and they cross them into an X point, and where those positions merge, they can create balls of plasma in the sky, or glowing lights and phenomena. They can create holograms that look like UFOs, and they can even direct them at people in a small way, these frequencies, and affect what you see inside your brain and inside your mind. So the idea that there is technology that could be used even in a dark way by the government is definitely there, and is a puzzle that we have to also sift through. But then the question is, well, if we know how to do this, how do we know that these entities or the phenomena don't also have similar kind of technology? And what we might perceive as magic or spiritual encounters or some supernatural phenomena, when it appears to us, like materializes and then disappears, or the entity might even be holding something that looks like a magic wand, or things that don't make any sense, is still could still be some kind of a form of technology that we just cannot fathom. It appears like this idea of merging technology with consciousness and with that, what you would call like your spiritual intentions, I think at these higher levels is all merged. So the idea of your thought processes and meditation and these experiences with the technology, I think in our own future and for these entities, is all blended together, where they don't see it as different categories. And so, and when you look into ancient cultures, it was the same way. When you go look at ancient Egypt, it was full integration. You had full integration of not only the spiritual beliefs, but of astronomy and the sky, and then their whole culture and everything through the entire community and the civilization was all unified under the same idea. And now we live in a world where everyone has individualized very differently, and their church is at church, school is at school. When they turn on TV to watch a movie, that all those are different separate boxes that we have in different categories within us. And it didn't always used to be that way. And I think these extraterrestrial or other entities out there are just fully integrated, from the way they think, their thoughts and their emotions, to their spiritual life, to their technology, is all blended into one unified way of existing. And that's hard for us to fathom, I think. So that blending of technology and experiences is all there. When I've had personal encounters where I've been taken or abducted and put back, the places that I've gone felt like they were spiritual visionary experiences, but also in an environment that was technological. Like I was on a spaceship, but having a spiritual experience with an ancestor. Both worlds combined that shouldn't make sense, but somehow there they are. And it's very interesting. But yeah, I think the government not only has different technology to fake certain aspects of this, but the entities themselves also do. And when you get into it, trying to split it all out like it's separate things doesn't really work, because it's all kind of mixed together.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot to take in. That's pretty interesting. I want to take a little sidestep, because I know we were talking about this ahead of the show, but it's such a hot topic right now. I want to talk about the drones, and just, it just seems like it's being passed off as nothing. I'm wondering, what is actually going on. Is some of it, some of it is hype, of course. Someone just, while the show is just beginning, high school friend just sent me a video on my text of a drone right nearby here. But I think there are hobbyists that are like getting on the bandwagon and getting their drones out there to cause a little bit of a stir. I think that's all part of it, but I certainly don't think that it's a nothing burger. I think there's something actually going on. Now, for those of you who check out the Joe Rogan show, Ryan Graves, who was supposed to be on tonight, was actually in that. That just released a few hours ago, I believe. And in that, I watched part of it because I was getting ready for tonight with him. He talks quite a bit about drones. He doesn't think that there's any, he personally, with the people he's talked to, he personally doesn't think there's any possible nuclear threat, where some people have been speculating that somewhere on the East Coast. But he doesn't believe that with the people he's talked to, but I just think it's kind of funny that people are in the government and the White House are just kind of passing off that this is nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me either. They just came out with a whole statement today saying that they feel like it's just normal drone activity, and for some reason people are just in a stir over nothing. And to me, that doesn't add up, and I know better. And I can say that confidently, because not that Ryan is lying or anything like that. I just am personal friends with the actual scientists and the physicists that go back to Washington and to the Pentagon to report on the findings, to report on the data, and to tell all of those experts that go out on the news and tell everybody what's happening. Most people don't have any idea how that works. There's not actually like necessarily people at the Pentagon or at the FBI that are out there, you know, with sensors in New Jersey trying to capture evidence of what is going on with the drone data. They rely upon people like Gary Nolan and Jim Segala and Kit Green and these other scientists and physicists that understand the phenomenon and have been studying this. The government utilizes them for that advice. And technically they're like out doing podcasts just like I am, and then trying to figure it out and reporting back up. When it comes to the drones, I think there's layers of it, and we're definitely in some kind of a psyop where they're not telling us the truth. I've personally remote viewed the drone situation and did the remote viewing process on it. And the idea that there could be radioactive material that's missing somewhere in the city, I don't know if I started that rumor or not, because I posted on my TikTok about how I remote viewed that there was something missing that the drones were looking for, and that I felt that it was radioactive. And that was from a remote viewing thing that I did. And then it kind of like spread like crazy from there. So I don't know if I started that or not.
Yeah, even Lou Elizondo, you know, thought that it could be a theory.
I think it's valid when you look at what the drones are flying around and looking for. They're large. They're only flying at night. To me, that's like they don't want people taking pictures of the drones. They don't want people seeing exactly what the technology is or the sensors that they've got on board. So they'd rather operate at night. And also whatever they're looking for, it doesn't require them to see with cameras. They can fly at night. So they're obviously using different kinds of sensors. And to me, the only reason I could think why they would be flying that low, that many drones over the city in grid patterns regularly like that, had to be because they were looking for some kind of a signal and leading up to New Year's Eve, the presidential inauguration and everything. There's going to be tens of thousands of people in New York City piled up for the ball to drop on New Year's. Yeah. And if they're worried about something that went missing out of a shipping container, then they would definitely be looking for it and not want people to panic about that. And so I was having full-blown nightmares that like I was seeing that these drones were looking for radioactive material. So I don't know if that idea caught on as a theory and then spread like crazy because it was just plausible. But even after I talked to Dr. Segala this morning, he flat out told me, he said, Carl, there is definitely things that are flying around in our skies and in our atmosphere and moving around over major facilities and over New Jersey that people can't identify. And he's even confident that with these modular sensors that he could prove it, that if we even had 5 or 6 of these sensors in New Jersey right now, we could tell everybody what, maybe not what they are, but where they're coming from, what direction they're headed, and what energy they're giving off. It's like he talked about, even if they're like a large drone that's just doing ground penetrating radar or looking for gas leaks, large drones flying over people's houses can still affect people's physiologically. Like it can still affect people, stress them out, give them nightmares, make them paranoid, and all kinds of different stuff. So I think it's definitely possible that with the drone activity, there's something that the government's hiding, and they're obviously gaslighting and lying to us about, that they're looking for or trying to figure out. And it's very convenient for them just to say it's normal drone activity. We don't know. Look the other way. Don't pay attention. And then on top of that, people are seeing orbs and they're seeing plasma phenomena and they're having all kinds of experiences. And what I think is happening there is that because of the drone activity, I believe that a lot of people are going outside and looking up at the sky for the first time in years. And they're doing a type of meditation they don't even realize that they're doing, that sort of is like bird calling for UFOs and this phenomena. So when they go outside, they're anticipating to see a UFO. They're basically doing what's called CE5, which is a contact protocol that the government even has studied to try and communicate with UFOs telepathically. So now, after the drones started kicking off in New Jersey and making the news, everybody starts going outside and looking up at the sky and accidentally doing the CE5 meditation, not realizing it. So now we have this mass wave of UFO sightings and orb sightings and plasma entities showing up in the sky, which is all a part of what you can do anytime when you go out and understand how to do these types of meditations. And it sounds like pseudoscience, but it's a real part of what we do. And it goes clear back to the Stanford Research Institute days with remote viewing and all of that. And so I think there's thousands of people going outside and looking up at the stars, and they're basically conjuring these plasma entities to appear and phenomena flying around. So we're getting a whole wave of UFO sightings that is on top of the drones.
Yes, I saw a really amazing film out in LA. A friend of the show sent it to me. I can't really say much about it at this point, but I hope to see it published at some point. It's really crazy. So there's a post up there for you. Did you see the Reddit post by the alleged radar technician? Are you familiar with that?
I haven't seen the Reddit post about that, no. But I'm sure radar technicians should know something. I mean, radar technicians should know where these things are coming and going from, or if they're anomalous or not, for sure.
Supposedly, I heard that the answer to the question whether there could be some, weapons of some type that is being searched for was that, no, that's not the case. We have a better way of looking for that, if that was a problem. And I don't know if you heard that or not, but I
haven't heard that. I know that there is an entire organization. I think it's called NEST. It's like the National, I can't remember, Emergency something team, but they're a team of actual helicopters, airplanes, and drones that are equipped with radiation sniffers. And their whole job is they're available 24/7. If there's any kind of an incident or missing radioactive material or whatever, these organizations are called up, and they basically go fly their drones, their helicopters, and their planes over the area to try and locate the missing radioactive material. That's like their whole job. So to me, it just kind of makes sense. I know that they have a lot of advanced ways to do it, but I mean, even just back in 2020, Homeland Security and the FBI and everybody came out and they admitted that before the presidential inaugurations and everything, they were flying these helicopters and planes around to sniff for potential radiation. So they definitely have a lot of different ways of doing it, but that's why it's so unusual when everybody suddenly is seeing all these drones and stuff flying over at night. It's like, well, maybe the other ways that they have for detecting the missing radiation and finding it, if it's through satellites or through radar, or if they have a lot of other systems, then why do these companies exist that require drones and helicopters and planes? And why are they still in business? That company is active in Las Vegas and flies over and around Nellis Air Force Base to detect radiation levels constantly. It's like a full-blown industry. And so it's just unusual over a hugely populated area to see it happening at night. And then when they come out and just say, there's no drone activity other than just normal stuff, like, to me, somebody's lying. I don't know. Even Donald Trump came out and canceled his plans and said he wasn't going to go to New Jersey and that something strange was going on. So who do you believe, right? It's hard to know.
Wow. But, this doesn't answer why they're in Australia, why they're in Germany, they're in the UK, or does it? I mean, is this something that's gone missing and they have no clue if this was something like that?
Yeah, if it's something that's missing, when I did the remote viewing on it, to me, what I saw was that something basically slipped through on a shipping container, and then they're looking for it. And then on top of the drones and them looking for this radiation, the UFOs showed up as a second layer or a wave when everyone went outside and started looking up. And so I don't know if it's more than one thing or not. If we toss aside the idea that they're looking for radiation, let's just say that I'm completely wrong about that, and we just look at it and say, well, maybe this is something stranger. Maybe this is an uptick in UFOs and plasma phenomena. I have multiple friends that have are experiencers and that work with NASA and work with the government. Chris Bledsoe is one of them. And a lot of my friends have predictions that coming up through the end of this year and this month of December and going even into 2025, that there's going to be huge waves in UFO sightings, UAPs, the plasma phenomena, and even people having experiences in their houses. And even 2 years ago, my friend Roger Colty, he lives in New Mexico in the Navajo tribe. He's a member of multiple clans and tribes through his upbringing, but he lives in New Mexico now. And 2 years ago, he told me that starting in December 2024, that we would see a wave of UFOs, that everyone in the world was going to see them and talk about them. And then that wasn't going to stop all the way through 2025. He told me that 2 years ago, and I don't know how he knows that stuff, but I have several friends that basically predicted that this was going to happen. So the fact that I'm talking about it being possibly like they're looking for radiation, I'm kind of the outlier among my friends who are all convinced that these are genuine UFO encounters, and the things that are flying over New Jersey are not just drones. I'm one of the unique ones among my friends that is even talking like they're drones and not plasma or UFOs. So it's interesting. I don't think that Congress or the senators or the people that are working in our national defense up there at a certain level understand this phenomena very well. And they're getting all their answers from my friends like Jim and Gary and those guys that are bringing them the solutions. And so it takes people like us to figure this out and to tell them. If we don't get the cameras and the sensors and the devices to figure it out and then tell them, they may not know when it comes to this.
Very interesting. I opened the phone lines. That number's up on the screen, 855-472-5483. Probably only have one time for one caller or so. But
Sure.
if you want to call in, ask a question, feel free to. So when this is all, if something happens within the next few weeks that we actually do get a clear answer, what is happening right now is, and I've said this before, I had a show just on drones last Saturday and anyone can watch that or listen to it as a podcast with Mark D'Antonio and Nick Pope and a few others. But what happens when there's a vacuum of information, it always happens, conspiracies of every type you can possibly imagine. So it just seems like it would be in their best interest to give us a little more than there's nothing going on here.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Why, if it is just like commercial drone training, why don't they just tell us? And I think ultimately this morning, that's what they tried to do. I think they tried to publish that statement and just say, oh, there's tens of thousands of drones that are privately owned and other people, so it's probably just misidentification or whatever. But that's where experiencers and the emails that I'm getting from people in New Jersey and stuff say otherwise. I have emails and messages from people that aren't just seeing drones, but they're having like full-blown paranormal type experiences in their house, or they feel sick or uneasy, or they're having nightmares every night, all kinds of different phenomena. And that's really like to bring up Skinwalker Ranch again and how it's connected. It really is, because it's not just looking up in the sky for stuff flying around in the sky, but it's trying to understand how this phenomena can affect you down on the ground and in your own home. Because when you go outside and you look up and you witness these things, if they are genuine UAP or UFOs or extraterrestrial life, they're not just like looking down out the window. They're telepathically know that you see them. I mean, that is the current understanding, is that there is a direct connection, and often is not just flying in the sky, but follows you home and is curious about you and where you're living, and even maybe what you're dreaming at night. And so the idea is, how do we catch the proof of that? It should be very simple. I mean, the government obviously knows, and they're either lying to us or they're trying to downplay it or whatever. But the people are seeing these things flying over the cities, and they're seeing them fly all over the world and experiencing it. And really, there's no solution to it except for having the right technology and the sensors in order to capture the proof, to know that it's coming or going. Because if you go out and see something, take a picture with your phone, experience weird things in your house that night, there's no way to prove it other than just telling a story, an anecdotal story that nobody's going to listen to. But if you actually have the equipment and the sensors and the data, like one of the modular systems that Dr. Segala builds, then you can immediately log onto the website right on your phone, and you can see if there was a shift in the X and Y axis of the gravity in your house. You can see if there was a pressure shift in the infrasound. You can see a spike in gamma radiation and EMF radiation, all at the exact same time that you were standing in the backyard seeing the drone. And then the scientists can look at that, correlate that data with your personal encounter and experience, and prove that something actually flew over your house or even came inside your house and visited you. And we may not know what it is, but we can basically capture its footprints and its digital energy signature and how it comes through the territory. So if it flies over a community or goes into people's homes, you can catch the proof of that. And Dr. Segala and his colleagues have been doing that for quite some time. And the first wave of that data was called phase 1, and it already went to the Pentagon and went back to Washington, D.C. and all of that as part of those congressional hearings and reports. And now we're in phase 2 of that modular study. I have a sensor in my home, and the phase 2 has right now almost 100 participants. Phase 1 only had like 30, and phase 2 has almost 100 people with different sensors across the country. And so it's starting to grow. People can order the sensors and put them in and then get the answers.
Wow. There may be a problem with the line. Two people have said they've tried to call. That's okay. We're getting toward the end, so I pulled the number down. I do apologize for those who tried to call, and I think there was someone trying to call from Iceland. That would have been nice. And speaking of that, I've always been curious. I was there a few years ago, but I've always wondered what kind of activity there is as far as UFOs in Iceland, because there's certainly a lot of geological stuff going on there. You know, they're like this major volcano ready to blow at any minute.
Yeah, there's tons of stuff. It seems like wherever there's big natural disaster things or weird, incidents or nuclear facilities, these things show up. Or just weird geological locations. When I went to Norway, that was where J. Allen Hynek for Project Blue Book spent a lot of his time over there. And he called that place a UFO laboratory. Like, you could regularly see these things coming and going. And my first night there, I saw stuff, lots of stuff. I was there with Chris Lato, and we saw things emerge out of the Aurora Borealis and come down from the stars and float around and even appear to land on the ground and move through the trees. And
is this like plasma type?
Yes. Yeah. To me, it's always the UFO phenomena. I've never actually seen a metallic craft. They've all looked like orbs of light, spheres of light, pill shaped or tubes of light. I've even seen what look like people made out of plasma in ancient indigenous canyons at night. I've seen what look like people stand up behind the rocks and look at me and duck back down, like people made out of light. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like seeing a ghost made of glowing plasma. I've seen that more than once. I've filmed it twice on a thermal imager, where I filmed what looks just like a ghost and looks just like a person, but where the heat signature is supposed to be is completely opposite. Where their face and hands are supposed to be is black and empty. But there's clearly a person there on the camera. They're just not really there. So
Wow, crazy stuff.
I think our eyes and ears are just very limited what we can perceive. And now the technology is starting to catch up.
Right. Yeah. And who knows what AI is going to do. You know, when I had Mark D'Antonio on last Saturday, he was talking about now a lot of these drones work on AI and, you know, are more or less autonomous and can possibly, you know, just go on their own and come back on their own, all types of things like that, which is fascinating. One of the things he said,
how do we know, Martin, that that quantum chip that Google just turned on didn't make contact with the phenomena through quantum means, and that's why we're having this giant spike in UFOs and drone sightings? How do we know that when they turned that quantum computer on, it didn't deliver messages or some kind of a signal through those quantum layers? Who knows?
Yeah, mind baffling. So when you are doing your everyday thing, you say you have a YouTube channel, and what else do you do as far as getting, you know, your information out there?
I'm on all the social media platforms. Primarily, I post on YouTube is the main spot. I have an inner circle of supporters that's part of that modular system and team on my Patreon page. So if you're interested in getting one of those modular sensors for your house or for your backyard to capture proof of something coming or going, you can get one of those off of my Patreon page. And then you are part of the inner circle team, where you're part of that chat and can share data and talk to everybody else who's a part of that group as well. And then, so my Patreon page, YouTube, and then I'm just on all the other social media platforms. I post different clips and highlights mostly from there. Yeah.
And what does that, if you don't mind me asking, put you right on the spot here, but I know I'm going to get the question. What does it cost to get into that unit there?
To get just the modular unit that we have now, to buy the unit is $500, and then it's a $20 a month subscription to have all the live feed access. So you can get on 24/7 and see all the data, see all the spikes, and then see all of mine. We also have a unit up near Skinwalker Ranch, and we're placing a unit over in Hesteland, Norway. And those will also be part of the information that you have access to log into and watch. So if a UFO flies over Utah or part of that valley in Norway, you can log in and see all that data too as part of that. So it's, yeah, $20 a month is a subscription that keeps all the servers going and makes it so that Jim Segala can keep building the systems for everybody.
And is this like a waterproof unit you'd set outside of your house somehow?
They are now. The one that I have in my house is an early model, but we have clusters now that you can even request them, and Jim will have them built so that you could put them down in the bottom of a lake or sink them down in your well to see if there's something underground or whatever. Through my friends Terra Exploration Group, they have portable backpack units that are for ground penetrating radar. If you think something is hidden in the mountain or on your property or in the mesa and you want to look in there, we have those units through Terra Exploration as well, but those are more like $6,000 a pop. That's usually when people just call me and then I go out there and do it all. It's cheaper to fly me out than it is to buy a ground penetrating radar.
Right. Well, you know, I have to say thank you so much for filling in at this last minute. I mean, literally within like an hour and a half is all we've known each other. So I really do appreciate you coming on board and filling in. And I hope you have really good luck with this. It sounds like it's not too overly expensive for people that may, you know, want to get one of these units. And if so, it's all part of like a network, and all these 100 people you mentioned, do they all have units?
They all have units, yeah. So they ordered them like 6 months ago. The first batch of units that we had produced had some bad chips and sensors in them, and so we rejected them, sent them back, rebuilt them, and now they're all getting sent out. Just this month, we're having over 100 units get placed into different homes and locations to capture the proof.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, Carl.
It was my pleasure. Thanks, Martin. Thanks for thinking
Take
of
care
me.
now. Thank you. All right, everyone. So I will be back next week with Todd Curtis. And the next two shows, Todd Curtis and Mike Fioriotto, are both going to be pre-recorded because one of them is Christmas Eve and the next one is New Year's Eve. So, but then we'll be back to our regular live shows right after that. Thanks so much, everyone. And we'll see you next week. And remember to keep your eyes